Welcome to the Leading Minds podcast, where we delve deep inside the minds of the top life sciences executives. Join us as we unravel how they think, their vision for the industry, the purpose that drives them, and how they are moving the industry forward while fueling growth for their companies and their teams.
This is Leading Minds, and I'm your host, Jasmeet. In every episode, we meet a leader who has made a lasting impact in the life sciences industry and continues to drive the industry forward. We go beyond the name and the title to unravel their personality, their beliefs, their mission, and most importantly, to understand how their brilliant minds are changing the world for the better. Before we get started, I want to thank our exclusive sponsor, Axtria, a leading global provider of cloud software and data analytics solutions to the life sciences industry. Now on to today's episode. I'm truly honored to introduce our guest, Greg Rubert. Greg is a senior vice president and head of U.S. commercial operations at Bausch Health. He is responsible for the overall strategic direction and leadership across a broad scope of commercial functions, supporting 5 U.S. commercial business units and driving over $3 billion in annual revenue. In his role, he is the go-to consulting partner for commercial BU heads, marketing, sales, and market access leadership. Prior to this role, he was head of the U.S. Insights and Analytics, where he was responsible for building a centralized insights and analytics practice after the company's reorganization into a central support model. Before Bausch Health, he held roles of increasing responsibilities within the commercial, finance, and accounting teams at Sanofi, where among other things, he led the integration of the systems, processes, and people for Sanofi after its acquisition of Genzyme. He started his career in accounting and has a Bachelor of Science in Accounting and an MBA from Marist College. Greg, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jasmeet. Happy to be here.
Greg, let me start with your professional journey. You have extensive experience in the pharmaceutical industry, having worked for some of the largest companies. You have accomplished a lot over the years and continue to drive further impact. In your own words, how do you describe your professional journey so far?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question and happy to get started here. I mean, I would describe mine as one that really anchored back to my first role out of college, which was in a public accounting firm. And so when I look back, right, where I started and where I am today, right, it's kind of a curious journey, one that certainly when you sit there as a 22-year-old thinking about where your career path and where you want to go, it's one that I would not have drawn up for myself. But I think ultimately, right, it started with a strong foundational background in accounting and finance. And from the start, my priority and my focus was always to work hard, to treat people with respect, and really, operate with a sense of urgency and integrity. And so, my days in accounting, I'm very fond of because that was really the backbone. And then from there it's really just been a series of opportunities, that were either provided to me. Certainly, I played a role. I would venture to say in terms of my own performance. But taking some risk and identifying opportunities to expand my horizons and move out of my comfort zone, and I think ultimately led to both professional and personal growth. And I think every role that I've served in, every leader that I've worked for, and teams that I've worked with, right, provides a little bit of that contribution into what ultimately will end up being a career when it's all said and done. So it's been an interesting journey, one that I would not have predicted 18 years ago, and certainly very difficult to predict what the next 20 to 25 years will lead to. But I've really enjoyed it, and every step of the way.
Thanks for sharing, Greg. And it's incredible because, as you said, you cannot predict how your career changed and how you managed to navigate diverse roles and situations. As you mentioned, you were not always on the commercial side of the business. You started with accounting and finance and then entered the commercial side. How did you make that transition? And was there like a specific driver of that change?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, I started my career in public accounting, so it really started with a good foundation of how business works and how companies work, how they make money, how they make certain decisions about, growth, and how to grow the business, and then a few years, 6 years into my journey in accounting, in public accounting, you kind of get to a point where you either have to you stay in and you're committed and you that's going to be a career, or you take a different route. And so I was fortunate enough to be provided an opportunity to move over and work in some accounting and finance roles, which again, each successive role got me a little bit closer to kind of the true commercial business, right? I learned right from kind of the ground up. I think the big jump was within finance, being asked to lead the sales forecasting function when I was at Sanofi in finance. And so that really got me that kind of quantum leap closer to the commercial business, which then ultimately, got me introductions to commercial leaders. I was able to make a name for myself, and then that ultimately translated into an opportunity to kind of jump over into the commercial team, supporting, commercial reporting, analytics, forecasting, market research, and ultimately, from that point forward, it's been a series of opportunities provided to me, certainly in areas that I was never an expert, and in a lot of cases had no prior experience. And I think that's ultimately one of the great lessons of becoming a leader and challenging yourself, is that the more responsibility you gain, it usually means you have less and less expertise in the areas that you're asked to lead and oversee. And so that was something that certainly took some getting used to, and is certainly a big contributor to the learning and the growth and the ongoing development, even for myself and probably for many others.
Yeah, Greg, I think that is an amazing journey. And as you know as well, pharma is a very complex business. And transitioning from accounting and finance to the commercial side, I would say requires vision and confronting your inner fear of the unknown. And you said that, right? You took risk and you didn't know where it would land. So, but clearly you handled it very well, given where you are today. Now, currently you are heading the commercial operations for Bausch Health. It would be great if you could tell our audience a little bit more about your current role and areas of focus.
Yeah, so I've been at Bausch about 6 years. When I first started here, I was tasked with really building an insights and analytics function that didn't previously exist. And over the years, right, opportunities had been afforded to me where my role has since expanded over that time to really encompass over a dozen functional areas, right, ranging from sales forecasting to analytics to Salesforce deployment, information management, marketing operations, even so far as trade relations, customer service, learning and development, right? So it really spans what some would typically think across most of the commercial functions outside of sales, marketing, market access. And our team, right, is roughly 70 people, but we support 5 commercial business units in everything that they do across those different areas. And so it's one of those where I think most people can relate to one or several of those functional areas, and obviously collaboration is key. We are a support function. We consider ourselves an integrated part of the businesses we support, but in the end, our main mission is to support the success of our commercial teams.
Great. Greg, those are some critical responsibilities, I would say, you have at Bausch Health. As you must be experiencing in your role, our industry and healthcare in general is going through a lot of change. What trends do you see in the industry that are shaping the future as it relates to your areas of focus, and what are some of the key drivers of this change?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the obvious one is really, the impact of a post-COVID world, right? The impact and the influence of commercial activities kind of continues to be a puzzle that many are trying to solve, right? Many of the market dynamics and patterns have changed permanently. Some were temporary, and I think industry is trying to decipher what is a permanent change and what is only temporary. in the end, it comes down to adaptation, right? How is the industry, or how have we as a company or other companies, how have we adapted? Have we taken that need to adapt seriously? Because ultimately, it's very similar to, right? I'll use the analogy of like animals in the wild, right? Those that adapt survive and succeed. Mm-hmm. Those that don't meet a much different fate. And I think, our industry continues to be challenged. I think each organization, and even, teams within each organization have adapted more quickly versus others. Some, more aggressively. Some are more reactive. But I think ultimately, the impact and the influence of commercial activities in this post-COVID world is certainly, to me, is kind of one of these continuing evolving trends. I think something that also goes hand in hand with that is this power balance between employees and employers. And this is not unique to pharma. This is not unique to just our company. I think this is something that certainly is not an original thought of mine, but one that I live and breathe every day, in terms of, this idea of, flexibility, remote work, greater appreciation that I think employees have for true work-life balance. People got a taste of what it's like to have more time with their families, with their friends, to take care of their own health during COVID because they weren't in the office. And so I think, again, the great challenge for us as leaders is, how do we adapt our own styles and our own organizations to these kind of post-COVID demands? How does it impact talent, retention, and recruitment? And what, in the future, what is it really going to take to build high-performing teams? And is our company or others in the industry or any other industry, does it have the right policies in place? Does it have the right mindset? Does it have the right culture to really be a high-performing organization in the future, because of this power balance that has shifted because of COVID? And certainly, I'm sure it's like any other pendulum, it'll shift back over time. But it is a great challenge, I think, for all leaders on how to effectively manage that.
Greg, that's a great perspective. And I love how you phrase it around adaptation. Now, I'm sure you would agree that every leader has seen many failures in their journey. And typically, you learn a lot more from failures than successes. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into your journey to talk about the peaks and valleys you've gone through. Can you share some key learnings from your journey, maybe some wrong decisions and mistakes that would help our audience so they don't commit the same ones?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a couple, and some of these are personal, some of these are more myself versus, and some are also ones that I've observed, right, of leaders that I've either worked for or worked around. I think one is, as you continue to advance and you find yourself coming into positions of leadership, right, it's important not to become too disconnected and isolated from the organization that you're leading. What happens is, as you become further and further away from the hands-on technical work in whatever area that you're working in, right, you get pulled into, management meetings, leadership meetings, reviews, right? Yep. And all of a sudden you find yourself disconnected from the people, the work, the challenges. And so I think, one of the things along the way, and every once in a while I have to kind of check myself on this to say, hey, have I been close enough? Right. And that doesn't mean you're at the ground level. You're not in the weeds on everything. But it certainly means you have to be connected to your people, to the challenges that they're facing, because ultimately it makes you a better leader, and you can support them in a more effective way if you have that level of connectivity. To me, I think the other big learning, and I wouldn't say this is a mistake, but I think this is something that we've had success in our current organization, is really prioritizing culture. This idea that, and a bit of it's cliche, but I think it's cliche for a reason, right? It's so important to build trust within your organization. And that doesn't mean just, hey, I need to be able to trust you guys as those, that are on the team, but it's as a leader, having this sense of accountability that you as the leader need to earn your team's trust as well, right? And so I think that trust in both directions, right, enables both to feel the sense of empowerment, right, to share ideas, to develop solutions, to solve problems, So for me, I think one of the big learnings as through my leadership journey has been, if a leader can foster a culture of empowerment, right? I've personally seen, I think others would agree, I've seen higher engagement from employees, higher performance, higher retention of your best people, because people ultimately want to be part of something that they feel proud of, they feel engaged, they're connected, and they can work within an environment where they know they're supported. So those are the certainly two that come to mind right off the bat.
And those are great ones. So stay connected and focus on culture. That's a great piece of advice for our listeners.
We'll continue the conversation after this quick message from our exclusive sponsor, Axtria.
Improving commercial and patient outcomes. That's our goal at Axtria. We are at the forefront of life sciences digital transformation with the most advanced cloud software and data analytics solutions, enabling companies to manage data, derive artificial intelligence-powered insights, and streamline business operations across the product lifecycle. Because of our deep expertise in the life sciences domain, we are the top choice for life sciences companies for their digital and business transformation initiatives. We work with all of the top global life sciences companies who consider us their true partners, driven primarily by our most important differentiators, our people, and our inclusive and progressive culture, which is focused on developing the life sciences leaders of tomorrow. With every project, we are helping our customers achieve commercial success. But more importantly, we are helping them improve health outcomes for patients. See what we can do for you at axtria.com.
Now, in terms of leadership, and you talked about some of the learnings and how leaders should think about their role. But do you have any specific advice for professionals who aspire to be leaders of tomorrow? What do they need to do to be effective leaders?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. Yeah, I think it starts with some of the basics, right? The key is, as you continue to advance and organizations and people trust you to take on leadership roles, right? Treating people with respect and genuine care for their well-being, right? Ultimately, to me, is one of those things that us as leaders should never waver from, right? I firmly believe, right, how you treat people is more important than how much you know, right? At the end of the day, because as you move up in your career and you move on into bigger and broader responsibilities, you become less of an expert in more and more things. And so, to me, it's important to always anchor back to this idea of respect of those around you. I think the other thing that I continuously have worked on, and I think is so important, is this idea of how do you respond and react in times of adversity or challenge, right? It's very simple, right? When things are smooth sailing and things are going well, right? It's very easy to be a composed and compassionate and effective leader. But I think what it really comes down to is, how do you respond as a leader in those times of adversity? And what I've learned over the years is, and I think it's important for future leaders or even current ones, this idea that all eyes are on you, right? And how you respond and how you react and how you behave and what tone do you set. In the end, leaders really do set the tone for how the rest of the organization or how their teams are going to handle different situations, right? So for me, I try to take an approach of staying level-headed, stay calm, take a practical approach to problem solving. And to me, I think it's been effective because it creates an environment where people can, take a deep breath, really work through the problem as opposed to getting too emotionally wrapped up in the moment, or what are people going to think, or what are the executives going to say, or so. To me, it's really critically important for current and aspiring leaders to really work on and be cognizant of how they react in situations, especially those of challenge. To me, that is something that is something that you never perfect, certainly, but I think I've seen where I believe I've been effective in kind of operating a certain way, but I've seen many leaders who've done really well in their careers who don't operate in the most productive way when things become challenging or when the waters get a bit choppy. So to me, this idea of how you behave and how you react, and a reminder that all eyes are on you, right? When things when we face challenges.
Mm-hmm. I love that advice, Greg. In fact, your advice is very practical and can be implemented by anyone.
Right. Yeah. Work or home.
Yes. Now, another important part of leadership is the ability to learn and grow, no matter what level you are at in your journey. This can be both on a personal and a professional front. Given that you have an important role at Bausch and it consumes so much of your time, how do you continue to learn and grow?
Yeah, I really like this idea of studying and reading and observing, others in leadership, others in similar roles, or even beyond that, really, others in roles of immense leadership responsibilities. I think at the end of the day, you have people that either it's in military disciplines, or it's sports, or it's business, or it's politics, right? So I found that the way I learn best, or I try to observe, or I key in on people that I find to have handled. You go back to your earlier question, Jasmeet, around what are some mistakes, or what are that along the way. And I think I like to look at it both ways, right? People in leadership positions who I view as really great leaders, or those who are in leadership positions that I view have not done a great job, or take a different approach that may have resulted in failure. So it's really more from the observation and studying and kind of reading about others in leadership.
Yeah, that's a great view of how to learn and grow, because it's critical, and how you incorporate that into your schedule. At the end of the day, it comes down to effective time management, which is again critical for all leaders. So we are mostly ready to jump into the fun rapid fire round, but I have one last question before that.
Yeah.
As you know, balancing a career with other personal priorities like health and family and friends is critical. How do you do that? How do you balance your personal and professional life?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to, it's always hard to balance, right? Every single day, I think it's hard to balance equally. And so what I've tried to do, and again, I'm not perfect at it, and I think it does require some deliberate thought, but in the end, I try to really prioritize my life outside of work, and ensure that I'm deliberate in making decisions that really ensure that I'm present and I don't let work rule my life. In the end, right, whether you leave early one day, or you take a week off, or you take 2 weeks off, right? The work is still waiting for you when you get back, right? The to-do list really never ends, especially, and that's not unique to leaders, right? And so to me, I've heard consistently, right? One of the things that when people have reflected back on their careers, they say, listen, in 30 years, you won't regret not working enough, but you may regret not spending more time with your family or your friends, or taking care of your health, right? And so that's something that's important to me. I'll tell you one of the things that for myself, I think is important for me, and I continue to kind of hold this value is, I encourage people to take vacation, right? Take vacation. And when you take vacation, that means take vacation, right? No email, no phone calls, right? Unplug, disconnect. And I try to practice what I preach, right? My team knows when I take a week off and I go on vacation, right, I'm not checking email. I'm not joining calls. If there's an emergency, right, you can text me. But because I do that for a reason, for my own, kind of well-being. But I do that to set an example that I don't expect others to be on vacation with their family or friends and plugged in from a remote location, right? It's when you take vacation, it's important to do that. So to me, I think that it all weaves together in terms of this balance. And yes, some weeks I spend more time at work than the personal stuff, but it's about trading off and being deliberate about prioritizing, the things that are important to me outside of work.
Right. Greg, thanks for sharing that. So many people I talk to struggle with finding a balance in their professional and personal lives. And we all know it is extremely critical to be successful on either of the fronts. Now let's move on to the rapid fire round. I will ask you some questions that you have to respond to quickly. Are you ready for that?
Okay.
There we go. What comes to mind when you hear the word leadership?
I mean, really, like, cool under pressure is something that jumps into my mind, right? Somebody who can, act with a sense of strength and steadiness, kind of regardless of the situation. It kind of goes back to what I said earlier around this idea that, right, when you're a leader, right, all eyes are on you. How are you going to react? So to me, it's kind of this idea of cool and collected under pressure. Easier said than done, by the way, but. Yeah.
Name your mentors or someone who has inspired you.
I mean, I think it's less of a mentor or even aspiring, but somebody that I view as a great leader and somebody that I've had the fortune of kind of watching from afar for many years. So I did my undergraduate studies at Villanova. I'm a big basketball fan. So Villanova's basketball coach for 20 years since I graduated is a guy by the name of Jay Wright. And Jay Wright, he grew and built a program and a culture that was really predicated on, right, respecting people, being a great teammate, supporting each other. And he's been successful for many years. And so obviously it was close to me because it's my alma mater. But I think in the end, it's this idea of attitude and preparation and effort. And so he's somebody that, right, in the limelight, in the spotlight, has always conducted himself with a great deal of class and caring for those around him. And so I would, just somebody that comes to mind, not so much a mentor or somebody who's inspired me, but somebody that I certainly have watched over the years as I've gone through my own leadership journey.
Awesome. What is the best advice you've received?
The best advice I've received is probably this notion of, timing is never going to be perfect. And what I mean by that is, right, if you're successful in what you do and you're afforded an opportunity to take a promotion, take a lateral move, do something outside of your comfort zone that's completely different, right? Don't get too hung up on, is the timing right? Meaning, well, I've only been in role for a year. I really wanted to be in role for 2 years. Or, I really don't think I've mastered this role, so I really want to master this before I move on to my next role. The timing whether it's in your current organization or a future one, right? You have to take opportunities as they come and really think long and hard, and don't let them pass you by because you don't know when the next one is coming. And this is speaking from personal experience, right? I used to have that mindset in my, earlier in my career where, I was in a new role and I wanted to really master that role and get comfortable in the role before I sought a new one. And several times I was approached to take on new things and people along the way had said, listen, you don't know when the next opportunity is going to come, so you have to seize it when it's in front of you. So that's probably the best advice I've gotten as it relates to kind of career and taking those risks and seeking challenges outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I can clearly see you followed that advice in your career as you made the switches.
I was forced to. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What do you do in your free time?
Oh man, I mean a lot of family time. So really spending time. My wife, my 3 kids, right? They're young, so this is the time that I really treasure and want to hold on to. I'm sure those that will listen to this, right, who are parents, right, probably feel the same. So we love spending time at the beach. We love being outside. I coach my kids' sports teams. We love to cook. Things that are, we love to travel when we can. Obviously, a couple of years we had to put that on hiatus, but we're starting to do that again. So it's really family time, friend time, right? Nothing too crazy. I'm not that exciting of a person outside of family and friends. But to me, that's my center, and that's where I like to be when I'm not at work.
You can have dinner with any person in the world. Who would be the 3 people you would pick?
Oof. So I think I'd have a pretty diverse panel, right? To be honest, right? Because I have diverse interests. So I think I'd go with with the person I mentioned before, Jay Wright, who was the Villanova basketball coach for 20 years, right? Alma mater, great leader. I think I'd include former President Barack Obama for similar reasons, right? He's somebody that not necessarily did I love all his politics? No, that's really not why. It's more my appreciation for him as a leader, how he treated people, how he made people feel. And so, somebody that is just interesting, right? Not just because of his leadership journey, but just also because of the person that I feel like, he appears to be. The last person is a bit of is a wild card, and I think I would throw Jimmy Fallon at the table. Jimmy Fallon's comedian,
nice.
Late night comedian. Again, I just appreciate the way he goes about his business. His sense of humor, everything else. And so, if I'm going to go to dinner with 3 people, I want it to be a diverse group. I want it to be, a lot of laughs, good conversation. And I think, a 4-top, somewhere nice. I think that could be a nice evening.
That's a very interesting group. And as you said, it's very diverse, which makes it very interesting. Greg, just love your rapid fire responses. We have come to the end of the show. But I want to thank you for sharing your journey and valuable advice with our listeners. You shared some important learnings, and I'm sure our audience would benefit a lot from your advice. Thanks for taking our time to talk to me. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you, Jasmeet. Yeah, it's been a fun time. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. To the audience, you are the most important part of this show. Thank you so much for joining us today, and tune in soon for the next episode of Leading Minds.
Thank you for listening to the Leading Minds podcast by Life Sciences Voice. Please share and hit subscribe with your favorite streaming platform. For more information, please visit our website at lifescivoice.com.